Hi, this is Matt at State of Flux here with another Everyone's a Critic 52-week movie challenge. We are in the penultimate episode, challenge number 51, a film you personally relate to. The movie I chose, American Movie, The Making of Northwestern. Year release 1999, aspect ratio 133:1, runtime 1 hour and 47 minutes. It's a documentary soft comedy, or unintentional comedy, rated R, starring, it's not starring anybody, but focusing on Mark Borchardt and Mike Shank. Directed by Chris Smith. Music was by Mike Shank. Awards received, it was the recipient of the Sundance Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival. Why did I choose this particular film over others? It's simple. I think the movie that I find most relatable after spending many years in the service industry is Clerks. And that is hyper real to me. However, I did a whole series retrospective, which you can watch on my channel, of all of the films of Kevin Smith, and Clerks I talked about at great length. Then the next thing that got me thinking was Clerks 3, because I was nursed a longing to be a filmmaker, and I even made several short films for quite a while in my life. So Clerks 3 really hit close to home, but I reviewed that, again, as part of Smith's oeuvre. So I was trying to think of another movie that kind of tickled that, and weirdly enough, this one came to mind. I hadn't seen it in many, many years. Have I seen this movie before? Yes, I saw it in high school on the recommendation of my high school English teacher, Miss Purpura, if you are listening. Yeah, I saw it based on her recommendation, rented it at Blockbuster Video, watched it that night, and it was kind of an eye-opening thing. She recommended it to me after watching a couple short films that I made with some friends, and I think there's probably a little subtlety in why she recommended this film to me. So, would I recommend this film? Why or why not? Yes, I will say I loved it a lot more the first time that I watched it, where I saw it just sort of as an active comedy and whatnot. Here, watching it as a full-grown adult, it is funny, but it is also, like, I've heard criticisms hurled at this film that is exploitative of its subjects, and I think there's truth in that to some extent, but I think that's true of any documentary, even nature documentaries and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a little less compelling. What troubled me more when I was watching it this time was how completely unself-aware the main subject is, Mark Borchardt, and or at least was during the making of this movie, and the fact that I found it funny before, and I'm watching it now, and maybe it's just the lens of 25 years later, and it just struck me as unbelievably sad. But anyway, I do recommend this movie, because it is a lesson in self-awareness, but it's also an examination of passion and the lengths we will go to make things happen for ourselves, even if we see ourselves as being something bigger than we actually might be. It's a movie that's definitely worth seeing however you want to watch it. If you want to just watch it to kind of numbskull dudes trying to make a movie in Wisconsin, and that's what is compelling to you. You can watch this movie and be more than compelled throughout the entire thing. It's funny, laugh out loud funny at times, but if you want to watch it as a person striving to do the impossible, which is to make a movie, like, it's unbelievably hard to make a film happen. All the elements are working against you. Sometimes, like, physical elements such as the weather and stuff like that, but I'm talking more about, like, people, like, when you're a young aspiring filmmaker and whatnot, you're doing this for free. you're not paying your cast, you're not paying anybody who's helping you. They're helping you because they want to see your dreams come true. And it's like, being a filmmaker is really one of the most selfish things you can do, but you're also, as the filmmaker, trying to do a selfless thing, which is to self-express, sure, but to give something back to the world that other people might want to consume and enjoy, and that's fascinating, right? Ever fascinating. And yeah, it's just something that I think is really kind of rewarding to see somebody work so hard, even if like the payoff is not what he sets out. It's not the goals that he's going to accomplish, but just getting anything done, any output, that some of which actually doesn't look half bad. That's the inspiring nature of it. I'll touch back on that this a little more at the end of maybe some base criticisms of how the documentary hits back and how it all kind of ties back to Kevin Smith. Which character were you most able to identify with or connect with, and in what way? I think it would be Mark, in the sense that I was the filmmaker that got my friends together to make movies, and that wasn't necessarily their goal or passion. They had fun with it, but they knew that that was my goals and my passion, and they wanted to help me live that as best they could and as best I could. And I have no delusions of what my filmic output was. It was schlocky horror at best, which is exactly the type of films he makes. I never pretended it was anything high art. I do think I have high art films within me that I could make, yet looking at what I had in front of me and my modus operandi of going about making films was use what I have in front of you. You don't have the capabilities of making your art films now, but maybe you can do your fun films to just entertain, and maybe someday that'll lead you down a path wherein you will get your art movie to be made at some point, where you actually have something to say. And that's where I think this movie kind of creeps into it. I think when I made the very first short film I ever did was a film called Nightmare. And I made it with a friend. It was he and I, a buddy and I had like a combined passion, and we made it, and we shot the first night, and man, we thought we had shot fucking gold. And everything else we did was going to be beautiful. And we shot it, we edited it, and we watched it, and looking back at it now, like it's hot, it's a mess. Like laughably so. However, we felt instilled because we did it and we made a fucking movie. So we did it over the summer between freshman year of high school and sophomore year of high school. And so when sophomore year started, I got into this English class, and the teacher was heavily steeped in film. So we bonded over that, and I was like, I made a short film, you want to see it? So I showed it to her, and like really selling myself on how great of the work it was, and like the film wasn't. So she recommended this to me, and it was kind of an eye-opening experience of like, I was at one point that completely unself-aware that I thought I was printing money, when really I was, as Robert Rodriguez once said, your short films are your bad movies. Everybody's got about 40 bad movies in them. Better to get them out of the way early on before you actually start spending money to make a movie. So just shoot as much as you can, make as many short films as you can, because that's your learning curve to make a movie. And this was very much that. Yeah, I'll move on to the next little bit. Best line or most memorable quote. I think my favorite thing in the world is the whole Coven. He sets out to make, Mark sets out to make a feature film called Northwestern, but he just can't get the money. However, he has over the years been slowly working to make this half-hour short film called Coven, and he is talking constantly about Coven, 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 and at one point, one of the crew, I think it was a cast member actually, kind of turns to him and is like, Coven. And then he's like, Coven, it's Coven. And then the guy's like, well, it says Coven. And he's like, Coven, but Coven sounds like oven, and no, that's not what it is. And then the dude's like, well, maybe it would be Coven if you put like the umlaut over the O. And he's like, that's pretty metal. But that whole like exchange has lived with me every day since I watched that movie. I think about that from time to time, not every day, but I do think about that scene and have for the past 20 years. It makes me laugh. Tell how you personally relate to this film. I kind of already covered that. I was an indie, spirited filmmaker who was, in my high school days, very much steeped in the indie masters of the time. Your Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, Spike Lee, all these Spike Jonze, masters of their indie craft. David Gordon Green, Zach Braff to some extent, Jesus. But I was very much being raised on like these films, and I was like, I could do this, and my lean was always horror. I feel like I could make a fucking compelling ass horror film, and to this day I think I could. And in fact, I turned that into writing. I love to write. I didn't set out into this world even knowing that I could write, and it turns out that I can. So I have been working for several years now developing a horror novel, and I guess it would be more supernatural novel, that actually allows me to say things and do things that I could never do with this life that I have, where I don't have an unlimited budget that I would need in order to successfully make this movie that would scare the absolute shit out of you, but also is a really compelling moral commentary on like just a general morality play, about shifting perspectives and stuff like that. So I turned it into a novel. I wouldn't have done that had I not seen a movie like this that really kind of opened my eyes to my capabilities and the reality of the expense of making a film. That doesn't mean that I am not interested in dabbling with film. I think about it quite often, making short films, and in fact, my 7-year-old daughter got the bug and she wanted to make a couple short films this past summer. And we did, and I edited them and showed her kind of like the process of making art, and she made 2 of them and had a lot of fun with it, and that's something that I'll nurture if she is interested in being pursuant of that. I think she's way into art of every kind, so she's going to be a crafty person, whether it's visual art or literary art. We're not there yet, but she's kind of discovering herself through art a lot, and yeah. So anyway, I relate it to this in the sense of being a aspiring filmmaker that thinks and knows that he could produce great work that people would like, honor, or respect. I had the wherewithal to kind of recognize my audience of who would be watching what I was doing and stuff like that, and to put it out there, be a little less gung-ho and reaching for the stars, and a little bit more of a realist. What emotions did you experience watching this film? I kind of covered that too. Back in the day when I first saw this, I thought it was laugh out loud hysterical, but it was eye-opening. Now I think it's a little on the sadder side, just to watch how completely unself-aware Mark is, and how people are sort of afraid of him, and how they are doing stuff for him, but I don't even necessarily know if they like him or respect him. They're just doing it as a favor and stuff like that, and I hope to have a better lineage than that, or legacy, not lineage. But anyway, this is as good a time as any. I was going to save it for anything else I would like to add segment, but this is as good a time of any to address it. And bending it back to the whole Kevin Smith thing is, how do I feel about this film now? I mentioned that there was like a sort of sadness while watching it, and I think it's through the framing of the documentary. The documentary is no holds barred in framing the two main people, but mostly Mark, as just completely void of reality. And the message you could easily walk away with this film, especially in current climate, is that look at this idiot trying to chase his dreams. He's a total idiot. There's no way he could ever do what he sets out to do. Isn't that funny? Let's point and laugh at a silly, sad man try to make movie it go boom kind of thing. And I don't think that that is particularly helpful. I feel like you could have framed this documentary and still had like some of these parts where he is not self-aware, but you could have framed it in a way that it has a little more of a triumphant feeling or tone to it. As of now, the movie kind of ends with the passing of one of the people in the film, and he gets finally gets the money that he always needed to make his feature film. But if you look up on IMDb, he never made it. However, he has done plenty of projects and has been included in things like Family Guy and done voice work and stuff like that, both him and Mike. But I feel like this goes back to something Kevin Smith has. He has one of the most inspiring, if ever you're an artist needing inspiration, look up Kevin Smith's Why versus Why Not speech. It's an 11-minute speech where he talks about the death of his father and how that impacted him. And the way it impacted him is that his father died screaming, and if his father died screaming, he was going to leave this world probably screaming too. And if you're going to die screaming, why not chase every fucking dream you ever had? And the best way to do that is to cut out the why people. Your life is filled with why. Why do you think you can do that? Fill your life with why not. Those are the people that you need in your life to truly fulfill, because even if you put something out that does end up like not meeting your expectation of what that art is, you know that you've at least done it, and you could be that person that wrote the blog or whatever it is that has shaped or changed the life of one person out there, and that one person may one day go on. Like, fill your life with why not is his whole thing. And so the way this film reads is it's really belittling to the aspiring filmmaker from the Midwest who lacks a self-awareness to know that he is incapable of making the thing he wants to do at this time. There's no inspiration, there's no like chase your dreams man mentality with this film. It is merely a point and laugh at them kind of film on a certain level of reading. I don't think that's ultimately true exclusively. I said so in the beginning, but I think there's very certainly a strong, firm reading. And regardless of how you read this film, I do think it's inarguable that it's not the most helpful to inspiring a class of filmmaker, or artist, or self-expressionist. And I do think this is where it comes back to Smith. Smith has a fantastic point. What's the point of belittling somebody? Well, like, why? That does nothing to help or encourage an artist. And you lose nothing by encouraging an artist. You lose absolutely nothing. It's important to encourage an artist, because if you diminish that encouragement, you're diminishing the amount of art that's entered into this world, some of which can change change somebody in questionable ways that maybe it's not something that connects with you, but it's going to connect with somebody. That's how art works. Everything has like connects with somebody on some level, even if it doesn't to you. I'm sitting here right now criticizing this film, and this film might be that one movie that speaks perfectly to somebody. And they're probably like really pissed that I'm laying this criticism, but that just speaks to the tonality and totality of how far-reaching art is, even on the smallest scale. Even if it's an individual, one person it gets through to, that one person is made better by having this piece of art in it. So pointing and laughing at filmmaker is kind of bad luck. So that's all I'm going to say about that. At the end of the day, I do like this film. I do recommend this film. It's a very well made documentary, pretty interesting, pretty compelling. And if you are a filmmaker and have ever struggled to make films or short films, and it's not just films, if you're an artist of any kind struggling in how you're getting your output into the world, you will connect with this on some level. But maybe not as much as I did with Clerks. So that's where I kind of land on this movie. Moving on to the final challenge will be for week 52, a movie released the decade I was born. I'm going to do one better. I think I'm going to do a movie released on the day I was born. So you have that coming to you next week. Have a happy holiday. And thanks for watching. Peace.